Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the Mean Girls of Morgantown Part 3. Today we're going to be talking about the tragic life of Skylar Ness. When Skylar was in the second grade, Skylar and her parents would be enjoying their summer, and they would be spending this particular day at a pool, where they would run into a family that would be vacationing in Morgantown that were originally from Blacksville, West Virginia. More specifically, this person that Skylar would meet would be Sheila Eddy, who was also in the second grade as well. And it is said that after that they would meet at this pool, that Skylar and Sheila would hit it off very well, and even after her and her family would leave back to Blacksville, that the two would actually stay in close contact and would become very good friends, even though they came from two completely different towns. But Sheila's upbringing with her own family would not be as pleasant as it was for Skylar Ness, as it is said that Sheila Eddy would come from a broken home. Shortly into her life, her father would actually be involved in a car accident, and even though the car accident would not be fatal, it would leave him permanently paralyzed. And when this would happen, it would leave all responsibilities to Sheila's mother to provide for the family. And because Sheila's mother was the sole beneficiary at that point in time, and Sheila's father could not contribute to providing for their daughter, Sheila's mother would eventually divorce their father, and it said that Sheila would come from a broken home. And when Sheila was 13 years old, Sheila's mother would actually start dating and marry a coal miner named Jim Clemens. But it should be noted that Sheila did not approve of the relationship, as after Sheila's mother would marry Jim Clemens, that this would create a lot of arguments between her and Sheila on many, many occasions. And all too many times, these disagreements would often end in screaming matches. Now, around the time when Sheila was a teenager, her mother and Jim Clemens would decide to actually leave the town of Blacksville and move into the town of Morgantown, which did not really bother Sheila that much, as she knew that her longtime friend Skylar Ness actually lived in Morgantown, and she knew that the school that she would be enrolling to at University High would actually be the same school that Skylar went to as well. And it should be noted that Sheila was completely ecstatic over the idea that she would now be attending school with her longtime friend. And Sheila would find out that she would fit in very well at the school of University High. And it should be also said that Sheila's personality was completely polar opposite to that of Skylar Ness. Where Skylar Ness was more described as very bubbly and loving and sincere and kind, Sheila would not be as Skylar Ness was. People would describe Sheila as very mean-spirited and would have a knack for wanting to be the center of attention. It should also be noted that she was very controlling when it came to her friend Skylar Ness. And like most teenagers, Sheila Eddy would be one of the statistics where in her previous school at Blacksville, she was extremely popular. And once she made the move to Morgantown, her biggest priority was becoming popular again in this new school. And because popularity seemed to be a priority for Sheila, not only would she have her friend Skylar Ness, but she would go around in the school attending various parties, flirting and kissing her way to more popular inner circles. And while Sheila was trying to build her popularity contest around school, this is around the time that they would run into another fellow classmate at school that they would quickly befriend, and that is Rachel Schoaf. Now, Rachel and Sheila would find that they would have a lot in common, and this is one of the things that kind of got them to all become friends, was because of how many similarities Rachel and Sheila had. And it should be noted that because Sheila was so controlling, she often played like the ringleader in this group of friends. It should be noted that Rachel Schoaf also would come from a broken family, and it is said that after her parents would divorce when she was very young, her mother would get primary custody of Rachel. Now, where Sheila and Skylar came from a more blue-collar type environment growing up, Rachel would grow up in an environment where money was not a problem. But the one thing that would be a problem would be, however, Rachel's mother, Patricia. It's said that Patricia would have a very short fuse and was also very domineering and controlling when it came to Rachel's goings and comings when it came to schoolwork. And one of these things was Patricia would be just as infatuated with popularity and social inner circles as much as Sheila was. And one of the things that Patricia would make Rachel do is just be involved with as much projects going on in school as possible as a way to build a more popular inner circle with her. And Patricia was very critical that her daughter only wore the best clothes and did not really want her being affiliated with people that basically were not as in their type of social circle as she was. But even though this would go on in Rachel's life, she would spend quite a lot of time with Sheila Eddy and Skylar Ness. And shortly, the three girls would quickly become known as best friends. They would be the type of friends that would always arrive at school at the same time, and they would also be wearing different outfits that kind of went together with each other, or they would always be around each other when they were outside of school, and often making posts on social media platforms like Twitter and Facebook, such as this. Not only would they make posts like this, but because Sheila was so adamant about becoming extremely popular, she would also start befriending older teenagers. And a lot of times, more than most, Sheila would try to persuade her other two friends, Rachel and Skylar, into coming to these parties where these older teenagers would teach these young girls how to drink alcohol and smoke weed. And when the girls became old enough to learn how to drive and actually acquire their driver's license, and it would be said that Sheila Eddy would actually have a car, a Toyota Corolla, and this is another way how the girls were always hanging out, as Sheila was always picking them up and driving them around. And if they weren't going to parties where they would be drinking and taking drugs or smoking weed, they would also be piling up in Sheila's car and driving around on nightly road trips. Although they would not drink alcohol on these nightly road trips, it should be said that a lot of times that while they were driving down the road in different areas, that they would be smoking weed and driving and just spending time with each other. But prior to Skylar's disappearance, family and friends would start noticing a difference in Skylar Ness's demeanor and appearance. Skylar's mom would say that after her disappearance, she would see in her diary that Skylar would make a statement that, "I cannot imagine life without Sheila Eddy." And it also should be noted that around this time before her disappearance, Skylar actually started dyeing her hair exactly the way Sheila's hair was, and her mother would say that she just would make it just straight and darker instead of keeping it the normal lighter, curlier hair. And classmates would recall after Skylar's disappearance that the friendship between the three girls was not as close as they had tried to depict. And classmates would tell people that right around the time of her disappearance that Rachel and Sheila started excluding Skylar in a lot of activities, where the two would become closer and closer and pushing Skylar farther and farther back. Classmates would say that Rachel and Sheila would try to match their clothes and completely exclude Skylar on everything. And the girls would go on a vacation with Rachel on the summer of 2012. And it said that Skylar would get into an altercation with Sheila because of the fact. But unfortunately, this argument would never be resolved because a month later, Skylar Ness would be dead.